Back on the streets. Did my time, took my chances. Hello everyone, this is Ernesto with Aftershoot, and in this video we're going to talk about the 5 most important pieces of gear everyone needs to get when they first start their journey as a photographer. Okay, so item number 1 is obviously a given. If you are going to start shooting photos, then you definitely need a camera because, believe it or not, your phone is not gonna do the job. Even though it's getting better, at some point it might, who knows, get as good as a camera, but for the moment you need an actual camera to shoot photography. So what cameras do you get? Well, the first thing to consider is what camera system do you want to jump into, because there's a lot of people that say, you know what, go for Canon because of the Canon colors and they have great glass, and there's others that have been shooting Nikon their entire lives, so they go for Nikon. I am a Sony shooter because I love the autofocus and the access to third-party lenses. There's a lot of Fuji fanboys out there, you know, even though the autofocus is not that good. Who said that? Who said that? Anyways, so first you want to choose your camera system. After you've chosen your camera system, then you gotta decide if you want to start your photography journey with an APS-C sensor or a full-frame sensor. Now, what's the difference? Well, basically, APS-C sensors are smaller sensors. They're not as good in low light situations, but they're definitely cheaper, and the glass for them are also cheaper. Full frame sensors are larger. They're usually what most professionals shoot. They're better in low light situations, but they're more expensive, and the glass is also more expensive. So what size sensor do I recommend a person to get if they're first starting their journey as a photographer? Well, it's very simple. If you're the kind of person that likes to try different activities, you're going to get into photography just because you're curious, but you're not sure if it's your passion, you're not sure if you're gonna continue it, you're not sure if you're gonna do it for work, and you just wanna learn the basics and then maybe decide if you're gonna stay or not, but probably you're just gonna move on to something else, then get an APS-C sensor. It's cheaper, you're not gonna break the bank, and you can still have it around to shoot some photos of your family or things you find, I don't know, amusing, but you're not necessarily thinking about working with it yet, so you just want to try it out. Don't break the bank, get an APS-C sensor. But if you already know this is something you want to pursue as a career, if you're serious about it, you've always loved photography, you've seen photographers around, you've been following them on social media, and you love what they do, and you're very curious about it, and you're very passionate, and you've decided this is something you want to pursue as a career, then definitely go for full frame, because it's a one-time purchase. You're gonna start with the sensor that you eventually evolve into, so it's better to buy once rather to buy one camera and then go into another. So you already decided on your camera system and sensor size. So what is the first lens you should get as a photographer? My recommendation is to get something wide enough and telephoto enough to help you shoot the first kind of events you're gonna be shooting. Chances are you're gonna start shooting parties or small events for friends and family. They're gonna recommend you because, hey, you know what, I have a family member that just started, and these are the kind of things you're gonna be doing in the beginning. So what's a good lens to start with that is gonna help you out in those parties and events? Well, my recommendation is a 24-70 f2.8. Now, I do not own a 24-70 f2.8 because I have so many different lenses that I ended up selling that one because it was a little big and heavy, and I traded for this 24-50, so I'm lacking 20 millimeters on the long end. But if I were to have only one lens, let's say tomorrow I'm backpacking through the world, I can only take one small backpack, so it's just one camera and one lens, and I can only have one. It would definitely be a 24-70 f2.8. Now, there's a lot of 24-70s out there that are f4, and while they do the job, it's always better, in my opinion, to get an f2.8 because they're generally sharper and they're much better performers under low light situations. Now, 24-70s are wide enough to get good group photos at events and parties, but they're also long enough on the telephoto end to get good portraits. So it's a good all-around lens to start your career as a photographer, and chances are it's always gonna be in your bag because, like I said, to me, it's the best performer. If I could only have one, like I said, it would be only a 24-70 f2.8. Now, I know 24-70s by Sony and Canon and Nikon are usually a little expensive. They're $2,300-$2,400, so that might scare you when you're first starting out, but the good thing is there's great third-party options. My 24-70 for my Sony system was not a Sony 24-70, it was a 24-70 by Sigma. Great, super sharp lens. It was a little heavy, but it did the job, and it was less than half the price than the Sony one, and it performed just as well. Autofocus was great, and like I said, it was extremely sharp. So don't count out the third-party lenses. Item number 3 I would recommend if you're thinking about getting another lens would definitely be a 50mm f1.8, or famously known as the Nifty 50. It's a good way to get started and familiar with prime lenses. It's gonna give you great blurry backgrounds, and if you're starting to shoot your first portraits, then that's gonna help you separate the subject a lot from the background, and it's gonna make your photos look great. Now, prime lenses are also extremely sharp, so that's gonna give you great results, and Nifty 50s are usually great performers under low light situations. Say you're shooting a party and the light is very, very low, but you still wanna use your lens because you don't have an external light or something, then the f1.8 is gonna help you a lot to get good results. And like I said, the blurry backgrounds are gonna be amazing. Also, usually 50mm f1.8 lenses tend to be cheaper than other options, so that's gonna make you happy too. Okay, so like I said, you're shooting parties, you're shooting events, but in those cases, in those scenarios, you can't exactly control the light. So what if you're shooting a party at a club? Someone recommended you to a friend of theirs that manages a club, and you were there, and then everything is too dark. And if you want to get proper good photos, you're probably going to have to pump your ISO all the way up to 12,800, and then your images are going to look extremely grainy with a lot of noise. So what to do in those scenarios? Well, that's why I recommend when you're starting your career as a photographer to always consider a flash. Now I know. When you're first starting, you're learning the basics about the exposure triangle, and you're learning to manage those settings to get a properly exposed photo. And now if we bring a flash into the equation, we also have to manage the flash power to balance with the exposure triangle, and then it gets too complex. Don't worry. Just manage the exposure settings in your camera, and then turn your flash into TTL mode, which basically means that the flash is gonna judge through the lens of the camera how much power it needs to output to get your photo properly exposed. It's like automatic flash power. That's gonna help you a lot in the beginning to get great photos of parties and events, which is basically, like I said, what you're gonna be shooting when you're first starting. But if you're also thinking about shooting portraits, then I would recommend that apart from the flash, and I'm gonna include it in this category, you get a flash trigger. Usually these type of flashes or speed lights go on top of your camera, and they produce a very flat lighting on your subject, which is not exactly the best for portraits. I mean, you can make it work, but it's not exactly what people are looking for. So a flash trigger is gonna allow you to get the flash out of the camera and place it in different angles and distances so you can get more flattering lighting on your subject. You can usually get flashes and flash triggers together as a combo on Amazon or B&H or Adorama or any of those stores. So look for a good deal and go for this combo. And item number 5 is camera batteries. You're gonna need a lot of them, with batteries and memory cards, but in this case batteries, the more the merrier. Now original batteries cost like $80 each, so if you get 10 of them, you're probably gonna be spending $800, which is gonna hurt. Now I've been shooting for years with, don't tell anyone, but I've been doing it, third-party batteries, and I've never encountered any problems. When you go to camera stores, they're gonna tell you, no, listen, that's gonna kill your sensor, and it's gonna ruin your camera, and it's gonna do this and that, and overheat, and etc., etc. It has been my experience in over 15 years of photography that this has never happened. I'm not saying it couldn't happen to you, but I'm saying there's good third-party options out there, like, I don't know, Small Rig or other well-known brands that do the job. So you be the judge of it, but get as many batteries as you can because they are going to run out. And a bonus item I want to recommend you get is definitely a good camera bag or camera sling or anything where you can put your gear and be sure that nothing's going to happen to it. Because if you put your camera and lenses inside just any bag, then you might drop the bag or they'll be just bumping into each other, and those things are expensive. So you're just starting. You just spend your hard-earned money in your first photography gear. You don't want to get them ruined so easily just when you're beginning, you know? So get a good camera sling, a good camera bag, protect your stuff, protect your investment, and be happy. So there you go. Those are the 5 pieces of gear I recommend everyone gets when they first start their journey as a photographer. Remember to follow Aftershoot in all of our social media to have the latest information on what we have to offer. See you in the next video. Bye.